again, everyone. Thank you for joining me. Just a quick video this time as I'm perched precariously on one of my stools in the studio, because a few of you have wanted to have a closer look at my cabinet here of my Combat Cards Warriors. So I'm going to do a close-up in a moment and show you that, and I'll run you through some photos of the figures that I have painted. So this is the second of my Combat Cards projects. The first one is well charted on my blog, and is this one, the to me more significant Goblinoids Combat Cards set. This was the first Combat Cards set that I got as a kid. In fact, one of three. I had the Space War and the Chaos as well, but the Goblinoids was the first one that I got. I got it with my great aunt Ruth, and it has special significance to me, and so I wanted to paint all of the miniatures from this set, get them looking as good as they are there. So when I got back into collecting Citadel miniatures back in 2009, 2010, something like that, one of the first things that I did was try to pick up all of these models, and obviously some of these are conversions. I wasn't able to pick up all of them, but I got as many of them as possible, and the ones that were conversions I got as close as I could to what I thought the conversions were based on, and it took me 3 years to collect all of the figures. They then sat in a box for another 3 years while I summoned up the courage to have a go at painting them. And then I think the painting on and off took me another 3 years to get to this point. So this is almost a decade of work. In contrast, the Warriors set up here, I managed to pick up all of those figures thanks to helpful people on the Oldhammer forum. Then the Oldhammer Facebook group as well. I managed to pick up all of those figures within the space of about 3 weeks. A lot of them are still in production from Foundry, so these guys, you won't be able to see. Well, maybe you can see. I don't know. Whether you can see or not depends on the angle. They're all set up to look like the Combat Cards windows if you hadn't already got that. So obviously, being front on is the ideal way to look at these miniatures. But yes, a lot of them, a lot of the feudals are still available from Foundry, so they're quite easy to get hold of, and a lot of the others are fairly common. So it wasn't a difficult bunch to get hold of, even in this era of premiums being charged for 80s Citadel miniatures. And then they took me 5 days, I think. I had a bank holiday weekend and a couple of extra weekend days to just sit down and paint my way through them. So I was getting through sort of 5 models. 6 models, in fact, on the course of the day. So yeah, they were comparatively quick to paint, fairly enjoyable to paint, but I wasn't so fussed. I think the Goblinoids cards that have Fraser Gray and Kev Adams paint jobs on them are significantly better than the paint jobs on these. The Heavy Metal team, such as it existed at the time, have done a great job on these. They're still pretty cards, but I never had the attachment to these, to the Warriors deck that I had to the Combat Card, to the Goblinoids deck. And I don't think the painting is quite at the same level. So I was happy to get away with some bits on here. I wasn't too bothered if they weren't absolutely exactly as on the card, but also I feel like the paint jobs on the cards were more achievable than the beautiful, subtle enamel blending on the Goblinoids cards. So there were a couple of difficult models to get hold of. Raynor of Sterland here. He was a difficult model to get hold of. I did eventually have to go to an eBay seller of ill repute for him in the end, but worth it to complete the collection. A couple more of them were conversions. So there's one here who is a where is he? This one. Who's a gamekeeper figure, but that base figure must have been converted 4 or 5 times after he was initially sculpted. And I can find all the other variants in the catalogues, and I couldn't find the gamekeeper. I didn't know he was a gamekeeper, even though he's clearly got a bear trap around his neck. But Foundry do one of the versions of him with a spear, so I had clipped the spear off him. I gave him a different crossbow and then puttied the differences on him, and I'm quite happy with the results, but a very generous guy has since sent me that actual figure, so I will at some point paint that and replace it in the set, although I'm quite now attached to my conversion. This guy Ragnar Crowback, I could find several copies of him, but all of them were missing the right hand and the axe. So that one, it didn't have a hand and the axe. The hand and the axe are a scratch build replacement, trying to emulate the original. So that there was a bit of work to do on him. And then the big one is Umberto here, who is an unreleased figure. There is one known of him in existence. He's not quite as notorious as the Nolan Spearman or the Dwarf Wizard, but he's another unreleased sculpt. So I decided to sculpt one from scratch. I think it's a fairly close approximation. It's close enough for my liking. And if you are a member of the YouTube channel, this is one of the figures that's in the members miniatures page, so you can get my homage sculpt to Umberto, the strangely armored kind of Kislev horse archer with a musket. I'm not quite sure what he's supposed to be, but anyway. And then, of course, there's the character that kicked it off, Giovanni Marmaladi, also known as Gladius from the Heroic Fighters of the Known World. So the main reason that I started collecting the Warriors deck was because I had him, and I had a couple of the other Heroic Fighters of the Known World, but I put them in with my Bretonnians for when I finally get around to doing my Bretonnian army. So they're going to be in there, but he didn't really fit with his giant gladiator crest and or punk crest and gladiator helmet. So I thought, I should replicate the paint job off the Warriors Combat Cards deck, and then that sort of spiraled into painting these. But the other reason that I wanted to do these, I picked the Warriors because they're easy to get hold of. The other reason that I wanted to do this deck was so that I had some opponents for my Goblinoids to fight when I take the attack and charge rules from White Dwarf to Bring Out Your Lead this year. So if you are at Bring Out Your Lead, I'll have these guys with me and have my Goblinoids with me. And if you want to play charge or attack, I'll have the rules and everything you need for them with me. So just ask me and we'll set you up somewhere with them. So that was the sort of main motivating factor to get these guys started and painted. And as I say, they didn't really take very long. They were quite enjoyable, sitting down with an audio book, listening to them painting these, and they were fairly quick jobs. So on with the next projects. And if you can remember from let's turn my scary big guy in the camera. There we go. You see how close to the roof I am. I'm running out of wall space that I have to go this high up onto the roof of my studio. If you have any of the projects that you've seen in the previous videos, especially I did one last month, I think, or the month before, with what's on my painting shelf over there. If there's anything that you particularly want to see me paint, then let me know, because I'll have a little bit of free space on my painting table in the next couple of months, and I'll need some inspiration to move on with something. So do let me know. In the meantime, take care, and I'll see you next week.